combat weight is not the same as training weight, like not even remotely close.
All right, folks, we got another one, man. I went out there to my comments. I saw Justin commenting about how just heavy his ruck was, carrying the base plate for a mortar, packing around a 240 golf in war. So I hit
Golf,
him up, man.
we're on Bravos. We're not on Golfs, man.
You on
We're old
Bravos,
school. Yeah, Bravos.
240 Bravos. So
Yeah.
I got him on here, man. We're gonna get some real foot to ass information about carrying real weight in combat, being mechanized infantry, which really isn't mechanized, light infantry, which isn't anything light. So
No,
Justin, man, I appreciate you coming on here, man. Tell everybody kind of your little bit of your backstory so that we can get up to speed, and then we'll dive into carrying really heavy shit for really long distances at really high altitudes.
Jake, I appreciate it. I actually found your podcast, your YouTube channel by just an algorithm. I was swiping through, bored one night, and you popped up, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I'll watch this." And I think you had on a Green Beret guy, Valhalla. I think is just You guys were talking about weights, and I commented on there and was like, "Hey, combat weight is not the same as training weight, like not even remotely close." And to give you context of my background, like we discussed, I did 10 years in the Army. I was an infantryman the whole time, spent the first half of my career or a third of my career in the 10th Mountain Division. So the Army's last true light infantry division. Then after that, I did 2 deployments with them to Afghanistan in 2009 and 2011, and then went to the 1st Infantry Division, which is a heavy mechanized combined arms division, which means tanks, Bradleys, infantry smashed in together, maneuver warfare, etc. And then after that, I went to the Natick Research and Development Center, where I was a combat applications NCO specializing in gear design and development. So basically anything the soldier weared, carried, or ate. I try to stay away from the eat side because that's where the experimental MREs come from, and I'm sure you're familiar with how your gut feels with those. But when it comes to the gear and load design development, I think I would have a place to stand on because I worked with what's called PEO Soldier, Program Executive Office, and it comes down to the design, development, and load carriage implementation of gear on the body. And during my time there, we focused a lot on female and male physical combat loads, and we had things like obstacle courses, and they try to design a PT test around it. So that's kind of my background, and I'm not just coming from the combat side, but I can provide some insight to the scientific thinking of the Army and how it applies to the base infantry soldier, because the United States Army anyway, doesn't create its standard combat load per doctrine based on the experience of the last warfare. They base it on the background of the infantry soldier coming out of basic training. It's not like...
Tell me this, Justin, is that basic soldier coming out of basic training getting worse? Smarter, but physically less capable, correct?
I wouldn't even say that. What I would say is they're getting better in that the Army is applying, hey, we want you to think on the battlefield. It's not all about rah in your face, like kick your ass in. It's more about, hey, I want you to change your mindset to work as a team and figure out intellectually or cognitively how to complete the task at hand that's presented with you. They want you to be mentally dynamic and fluid on the battlefield. Does that make sense? They want thinkers, not robots. But they're getting worse, and this happens, I would say, between every war. They're getting worse because the Army can't predict what the next war is going to be like, and the experienced infantry soldier from the last war is no longer part of the infantry basic cycle. So like when I came through basic training, I had drill sergeants that were from Ranger Bat that had done the invasion of Iraq, the invasion of Afghanistan. They had done 3, 4, 5 deployments. I had a conventional drill sergeant. He was a regular infantry guy he was like, hey, here's how we deal with snipers. We put a tank around through the building. We don't deal with them. Like, we just kill them. There's no, like, let's maneuver on this guy. Let's conduct CQB, clear the building, be the heroes, put a line charge on the door. The conventional Army does not do line charges and clear buildings. It levels it. We don't have time to fight in every single building every moment of the day. And you being a SEAL, it's different. You guys have the time to do that. The regular conventional Army does not. We don't clear buildings, we level them. So it's getting worse in that the experience isn't there, but it's getting better in that the Army from the higher ups is trying to change the mindset of how the battlefield is shaped through the individual being intelligent as a team.
Gotcha. All right. So I know I talked to you a couple days ago. You told me some really awesome stories. Talk to me about not being able to get on the helicopter.
Okay.
Like,
So at the time, I was a gun team assistant gunner. In the conventional Army, you've got 3 personnel in the machine gun team. And at the time, we carried 240 Bravos. It's like a 24-pound light machine gun, right? Fire 7.62. Or I guess for the non-metric type, it'd be the imperial weight would be .308 or 308, right? 308 Winchester. You can go buy your local store. Same gun, or excuse me, same cartridge. And you've got an assistant gunner, a gunner, and an ammo bearer. And the assistant gunner is responsible for, obviously, assisting the gunner in employing the machine gun. Part of that process is you have to carry spare barrel, tripod, and extra ammunition for the gun system. The average combat load at the time, 1,200 rounds of 7.62. So that's divvied up over 3 people. August of 09, I can't remember if it was August or September, Cop Keating got overrun. And this is where Clint Romashaw and Ty Carter got the Medal of Honor. So Keating gets overrun. It's in the next valley over from us, or the next district, basically. And we're out on a foot patrol, like a 2-week-long patrol. And they're like, hey, you guys got to come back. We're going to put you on a helicopter, and you're going to go into Cop Keating. So we're like, all right, Roger. So we, hustle back. At the time, my gunner was on leave. He had gone on mid-tour R&R. So it was just me in the gun team. We had taken casualties in the beginning of the deployment that we didn't have enough personnel to cover down on pretty much a squad and a half of people. So gun teams are running short. You need more line guys to maneuver. You can run a machine gun team with a squad leader and a gunner. Like the minimum you need an assistant gunner and a gunner. That's all you need. So my squad leader was like, hey, I'm going to be your assistant gunner, but you're not going to bring spare barrel and you're not going to bring tripod. If we have to burn the gun down, we will. Just load up on the typical combat load, which is 1,200 rounds. So I've got 3 or 4 bottles of water, a frag grenade, a 240, and I've got it in a ruck on my back. And I've got
Did you have a secondary? Did you have a pistol?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no. We're not. Depending on where you're in Afghanistan, your pistol's useless. The typical engagements for us are minimum 600 meters, average about 900 meters, maybe a little bit more. And we're running iron sights on this gun, so it's old school. Like, hey, you better work together and get some impacts on these gun systems. But I tried to, get on the Chinook when it came into our outpost. We have a little HLZ set up in the back with HESCO barriers. Helicopter lands. It's just Chinook, and the ramp is probably 8 inches thick. And it comes down at an angle. And I tried to hop up onto the ramp to get in, and I physically couldn't get all the way up into the ramp without help. At the time, I weighed maybe 140 pounds. I was skin and bones. I was a short dude at 5'8" and 5'7", 5'8", somewhere in there. And, you've got 120 pounds of gear on your back. I only have 40 pounds left to spare. And of that 40 pounds of my body weight, 35 pounds of it is in my body armor. I'm wearing a conventional ACH helmet. I've got an IOTV with front and back plates. We took side plates out because we're up at altitude. We're at 10,000 feet. Just too much weight. So I'm literally carrying my body on top of my body. And when I got to my unit, there was no emphasis on being a warrior athlete. It was just, you're a warrior. And your PT test was predicated really on, and how good you were a soldier is based on how fast you can run, not how physically strong you are, which is why the PT tests are changing now, because they're realizing you can't have a 140-pound guy carrying 180 pounds of gear on his back. You're just not combat effective,
Now, you said a big key point. You're up at 10,000 feet. I want everybody to understand, up at 10,000 feet, man, you got about half the oxygen, right? Maybe. Yeah, it's about. Let's see. I'm gonna go to the phone.
The Googles,
because I had to Google right how much 7.62 weighs. They're trying to tell me it weighs only 4 pounds, but I know that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true.
It
depends on It's linked. Remember, it's M80
It's linked.
ball
It says linked, but
linked.
I know that's not true. It's not true.
Yeah,
It's like 7 pounds.
I don't know. It's closer
Um,
to 10. I thought.
no, it's
I'll hit
like
the
7.
Google.
It's 7.
It's
How
7.
much O2 is there at 10K? Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a third less. So there's 14% oxygen at 10,000 feet. You're normally walking around at 21% oxygen. So
Right.
you have a third less oxygen at 10,000 feet that you're trying to breathe. I want everybody to understand it doesn't mean you just breathe a third faster.
Nope.
It just doesn't work that way.
I mean, you are. You're going to breathe a third faster for a while.
But
It
it
doesn't
just,
mean you're putting more oxygen into your system, though. Your body's
nope.
working overtime.
Your body works on partial pressure of oxygen. You can't do nothing about it. You're only getting 14%. So just take a third of your aerobic capacity off the table. Now, your body's going to adjust in 3 or 4 weeks, but it doesn't ever adjust to 100%. The only
Right.
way you realize that it adjusts is when you come back to sea level and all of a sudden you turn into an aerobic animal, So,
And
okay,
you
so
think about it too, like all the Afghans at that time, well, even now, they're born at that altitude, so their body is naturally adjusted to it. So when you see the typical infantry guy from the GWAT era, the Global War on Terror, they're weighed down with all this equipment, and you got this dude in man jams running around with an AK. He can climb up and down those mountains significantly faster than you can because he's born into that environment.
and he's only carrying an AK and 3 magazines because they got all the kids ferrying magazines to him, right? Like
Right.
their weapons resupply is his 3 kids that keep bringing in weapons. They go back and reload and they come back. So
Or it's that Stage magazine that's been in that one random pile of rocks for 7 years before I got there.
yep.
And the ammo's rusted. It's not the same beautiful color it was when I left the factory. It's been sitting in a magazine outside exposed for a couple of years. He walks up there, picks up the gun, picks up AK, engages, puts it down, walks away. But yeah, the weights.
So how'd you get on the helicopter?
Okay, so the assistant gunner and my squad leader had to physically assist me up into the ramp,
Okay.
and then typically, because I've got so much weight on, normally when you get in a helicopter, you take your bag off and you set it on the ground in front of you, right?
Okay.
And when you go to get off the Chinook, you would put one strap over your shoulder, grab the gun, and go out of the back of the helicopter. But at light infantry, we don't, or at least my unit didn't, we don't do that. I sit with my rucksack in the seat in the helicopter. I don't put a lap belt on, even though the crew chief will be like, hey, put your seatbelts on. I'm not putting a seatbelt on, man. Not going to happen. If you get shot down, there's nothing I can do. I'm along for the ride, whether I'm strapped in or not, right? It's because when I get on the ground and that helicopter is stationary, I have to reach down below my gear and undo the freaking seatbelt. So I'm doing like a rucksack flop because I've got my ruck on.
Yep.
I'm leaned up against the back of the seat, and the gun is barreled down to the deck. And so as soon as it comes, I lurch forward because I can't really sit up. It's like doing an atomic sit up. And then I can pop myself up from there because if I put the ruck on the ground, I physically can't pick the ruck up with one shoulder strap and put it on my body. It's not going to happen. And to your point about our conversation yesterday for this, if you're a mortarman, it's even worse.
And we were talking about, there was a couple times I went out the door with way as the officer, man, we had 10 mortar rounds, batteries for the radios.
Dude, don't get me started on batteries.
Yeah, my ruck was probably at 100. And then I had, the 43 pounds of gear on my body, bullets. And then I had my fucking H gear, which is another 20 pounds, and my weapon, which was 7 pounds. And I had my 40 mic. And so, like I tell everybody, like I judged how heavy shit was, whether or not you could stand up, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's 2 different phases, right? You just take a squat, you stand up, right? Like 60-pound ruck, that's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And then you got like 100-pound ruck, which you got to roll over on your hands and knees, and then you can stand up on one leg, right?
Yep.
And after that, like you crawling over to a tree. Well, really, you're positioning yourself next to a little tree so that you can hand over hand up the tree to get up, or 2 people are picking you up. But like in the SEAL teams, ain't nobody picking you up. So you will stash, like our 60 gunners always weighed the most. And so even if you were heavy, you still were in front of those dudes because they had 1,000 rounds of ammo.
Mm-hmm. There's no Like we talked about yesterday or 2 days ago in preparation for this, there's no such thing as light in light infantry. It is heavy shit. Like it's not it's not like Call of Duty where you're just wearing a plate carrier and you've got a little bit you've got a back panel. We don't wear back panels in the infantry. You got to put a ruck on. You got to put an assault pack on. The back panel on your kit, that gets in the way of things. Like it's going to rub and it's going to shift weight on your back. And that weight has to be stacked correctly on your back in order to not compress your spine, right? And then in the infantry, in a combat environment, you're not going to wear your hip belt. And the hip belt is there to transfer the weight into your hips, obviously, right? You don't have that luxury in the infantry world, especially in a combat environment, to put that on because your ruck has emergency quick release tabs on the side. So if you get in contact because you want to shed the weight to be able to fight, I have to rip that stuff off, right? And shed my ruck. Well, the hip belt is not connected to the emergency disconnect. So sure, I've got the hip belt on there and it's a pressure, it's a plastic male-female connector that I have to push and separate.
Oh, it's this way.
It
pushes
it's like
this way.
Yeah.
It's not this way. You don't pull it up like a can opener.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. It's a push and then separate. Not where you push the two. Well, it depends on what version of the ruck or hip belt you have. But you have the MRE 5000, which is the predecessor to the ruck that's over your right shoulder, I think, left shoulder.
Gotcha. The Alice pack.
Yeah, the Alice pack. Yeah. So, and this is where we talk about gear design and development. So the modern Army rucksack is called the MRE 5000 or 4000. MRE 5000. And the 5,000 denotes 5,000 cubic inches of space in the pack. Well, under the bottom of the ruck, it has like a zipper that's a frown on the bottom. And then inside the ruck, it's got a compartment that separates the bottom of the ruck from the top of the ruck. The reason it's done like that, the bottom of that ruck is designed to fit the clue for the javelin. That's the only reason. It's not there to fit your sleeping bag. It's not there to fit your lookies and chewies and your pogey bait and all that crap. It's purely designed for the clue so that the average infantry soldier can jump with it, can jump with the clue out of an airplane in an airborne environment. All gear is tested to an airborne standard. It's developed by the Army. The Army says, hey, here's our requirements for this type of environment. We want this stuff to be jumpable for the airborne infantry soldier. Develop a pack around it. The Natick Research and Development Center has a guy or two gentlemen by the name of Rich Landry or John Kirk. They overview or oversee the requirements for that position, working with commanders and divisions and whatever the requirement is. Then they allow industry to bid on it based on the requirements, and Rich Landry and John Kirk review it, say, hey, does this meet the standards? Yes, it does. That's actually how you have the MOLLE system. Not MOLLE system. The things that go across and you can weave your mag pouches. Yeah. That's called
what's it called? Webbing?
It'd be,
I thought it was called MOLLE. The MOLLE system?
Maybe it is a MOLLE. I forget what the term is. But anyway, I guess it is MOLLE. No, because MOLLE gear. There it is. Yeah. So I couldn't remember the name. And the only reason I'm saying yes and no is if you'll notice your rucksack is called an Alice pack, but then you have your MOLLE gear or your MOLLE ruck. The reason it's named like that is because John Kirk and Rich Landry wanted it to be named after a girl. So you have an Alice pack and you have MOLLE gear. There'll always be girl names in the equipment development process for gear for the Army because of that. Because Alice is actually an acronym, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's an acronym, right? Because you had web gear, and then you had your Alice pack. Now you have MOLLE gear and your rucksack, right? So there's a method to the madness for everything as they develop. But what happened and to come back around to the gear side of things and weight, the Army tested all these rucksacks and was like, hey, we're going to put the clues in them and we're going to jump them and we're going to see how this new MOLLE 5000 rucksack is. Of the 15 clues that they jumped, 13 of them broke on impact because there's no padding, reel, or protection on the bottom of the ruck. But then the Army was like, well, this ruck is great. We can fit more shit in it compared to the Alice system. So let's keep the new ruck. So they kept the new ruck. Well, as a part of a problem of that is now the commander's like, hey, cool, we're going on patrol. I want 4 days worth of food, 4 sets of clothing. I want an extra set of spare boots in there. You're going to have front plates, back plates, side plates. I want you to carry more water. I want you to carry all this other shit. Claymores, I want ropes. I want freaking flares. I want mortar rounds in there. You're going to carry extra 7.62. And now combat loads increase. Because in World War II, the average combat load is only 35 pounds. That's where that 35-pound standard comes from. It's just the bare essentials the soldier needs to survive in that combat environment. Like,
And
combat is not supposed to be comfortable. You're not supposed to be glamping.
And Justin, I'll say this: the big difference is they didn't have plates back then. So, like, even now with the lightweight plates, right? You're still talking about plate carrier and plates, probably a minimum 20 pounds with the most Gucciest plates out there in the world. So you just think about it. You went from 35 to 50 just adding plates.
And that's actually because of an officer in Vietnam who decided, hey, it's a cool idea to wear a flak vest.
Yep. And now the other thing is you're losing some weight because the gun doesn't weigh 16 pounds anymore, right? So there's a little give and take. But how many MREs would you take with you in the field per day? Like, how many would you take?
If we're going out for a week-long foot patrol, I would take a whole case and I don't want to swear in your podcast here, but
you're fine. That's fine.
I'd rat fuck it. So I would take all the necessary comforts out of the MRE, like no heaters. Take just the food, wrap the food, and put like a granola bar, toaster pastry, and like some applesauce. Put some tape around it, and that's meal one. Because I got to have 2 meals a day. So I'm using
that's what I was asking. So you're taking 2 meals a day?
Yeah, 2 meals a day.
Yeah. And they're supersized a little bit.
No, they're the regular MRE bags.
No. What I'm saying is, though, you're like, are you putting 2 main courses in each meal?
I would take, like you get 1 MRE bag, has a whole day's worth of 3,000 calories or whatever in that bag, right? Okay. Has the full meal in 1 bag.
Yep.
Right? I'm going to take all that crap out of it. I'm going to get just the bare essentials, duct tape it, right? Day 1, morning. I'm going to grab bag 2. Fuck that. Say day 1, evening. That's 1 day's ration. So 2 bags, 1 day, shrunk down because ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain. A full MRE bag takes up space in my ruck and it adds weight to my ruck. So I need to shed the cardboard crap out of there. I put a combat spoon in there. I take 1 spoon, maybe 2, right? Because I break a spoon or lose a spoon. I'm not taking, because in every MRE there's 5 or 6 spoons. But I mean, we're talking doll hairs here, but ounces equal pain. So I'm shedding everything I don't need that's redundant.
And so I was asking because in the SEAL teams, what we'll take 24 cases and we'll pull out all the best food and put them all into 1 MRE, right? Like, so like, a 1 MRE for me, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm getting rid of all that shit. If it's hot, I'll leave the salt in there. Mm-hmm. But really, I'm just going to fucking, like, I tell everybody, like, when we went to the field, one of the old dudes taught me pepperoni and hard, I think it's Parmesan cheese. There's a hard ass cheese that doesn't go bad. And so you just take a log of pepperoni and a log of that. And like, we didn't go out for more than probably 2 days, 3 days at the most. Yeah. So you could kill it on pepperoni and cheese for 2 or 3 days.
But you really can't. You really can't. Like, you're burning so many more calories wearing all this crap. And like we talked about the other day, one of the things that you learned is there's a difference between combat weight, training weight. You're not really used to the full, hey, I've got to carry 210 rounds of 5.56 of live ammo versus 210 rounds of blank ammo. Well, when you turn around and you add that into food and all this other shit, and you're wearing it all, you're going to burn calories at a much faster rate. And one of the things you have to be... Go ahead.
And you're at 10,000 feet, too.
Yeah, and you're at altitude. One of those other things you got to worry about is water. Because, if you're in a training environment, there's always a checkpoint somewhere I stop and I fill up my water bottle or my Camelback or whatever. It's not combat. You carrying all the water until you're getting resupplied and at 3 a.m. in the morning. So you carry a gallon of water on you. The chances of you getting water in an hour or two that's not a thing. Like, once you're out of water, that's it. So you have to really learn how to water ration yourself. So I would between missions, just super hydrate. 2 3 hours into the mission, on a week-long mission, I'm already dehydrated again because I've burned so much, and now I'm sipping on water. I'm not chugging water or trying to stay ahead of, hey, 8 fluid ounces an hour or whatever, and I can learn to pee again. No, that's
You're wrestling it. You're wrestling it.
yeah.
Two
I'm consuming
drinks,
water at a
two
wrestling rate. You're
sips.
right. Yeah,
I tell everybody the wrestling formula is a quarter of your water, right?
per
So
day or per
no,
or what?
just whatever fucking water you have, it's a quarter. So if you have a 16-ounce bottle, you might drink 4 ounces the first time,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
But now you're down to 12 ounces. So the next time you take a drink, you only drinking 2 ounces. Then the next time you're down to 10 ounces, you're like, okay, I'm gonna drink an ounce. And the amount of water you're drinking decreases by how much water you have. And that way you don't ever run out of water. But
Huh.
obviously we know that 16-ounce bottle ain't going very far.
No.
Like it'll last you a day, maybe, and if you were in a normal environment, you would have drank 10 of those. But when you're wrestling and you're trying to cut weight, you're trying to strip out some water, you're drinking like, I call it the quarters rule, right? It's like a quarter, whatever you have. The bottle never goes empty. Even at the end, you're just like, you're putting your tongue on the end,
Yeah.
turn it up,
Yeah.
get some water in your mouth and be like, ooh, that's the best drink in the world.
I feel super.
So,
Yeah. No,
that was
you
awesome.
gotta
So,
ration water. You gotta ration food. And a point about this weight is, the first 4 months, 5 months of my first deployment. So in the time the infantry did conventional forces did a year-long deployment. So in that year, you'd get a 2 weeks of R&R, take you a week to get home, week to get back. So you're really only getting 11 months because you're spending an extra month going home or wherever you want to go in the world, right? I started off in a regular line squad, being a regular rifleman, then went to a grenadier, then went to a designated marksman, then got moved from designated marksman into a machine gun team. When I did my first live foot patrol, we were at 8,000 feet elevation at our outpost, our fire base, right? And we're going to go climb this mountain. We called it BAM, a big ass mountain, right? Rare, unique, and rare terminology for the infantry. Things are big. And we're going to climb this big ass freaking mountain. And I didn't fully understand the weight difference between a rifleman and an assistant gunner. I had like mental concept, and I put the Ruck on. I was like, man, this thing's fucking heavy. Like, this is gonna suck, right? Just in my mind, this is suck. Don't worry, we'll walk at a normal pace so everyone can keep up. Mm-mm. There is a combat foot patrol pace that you need to maintain, because if you become too slow, you're essentially static. But if you're going too fast, you're burning everyone out because everyone's at a different physical fitness level. So you need to find the right pace to be able to move a distance, because the distance is ration depletion time, right? So let's say I need to move the average. Let's say the average pace of a day for us is about 15 to 20 miles a day, right? That'd be the average. The average distance we're moving is 15 to 20 miles a day,
mm, mm,
and that's
mm.
we're at 8,000 feet. We just went up a mountain. We're at 9,500 now to 10,000 feet, and I'm moving these 15 miles. Well, going up this mountain it's not like you ever been to Colorado?
Yep, absolutely.
You ever been to here's the greatest mind fuck you realize about the United States and Colorado. You ever been to New Hampshire before?
Yep, I lived in New Hampshire too.
Okay, so Mount Washington is the tallest mountain east of the Mississippi. If you
Okay.
compare the base of Mount Washington and the base of the Colorado Rockies to their peaks, Mount Washington is 1,000 feet taller than the Colorado Rockies, right?
Yes.
In in 2018, I actually set a ruck record on Mount Washington doing the auto road. I put 35 pounds of gear in there, put it on my back, and I, for time, rucked up the mountain, up the auto road to set a record to do like, hey, welcome back to civilian world. You can be tough and all sort of shit.
Okay.
When you're going from sea level to 6,000 feet, that's harder than being at 8,000 feet to 10,000 feet. But the mountain, depending on the angle in which you're climbing up it, is that much more of a ball smoker. And then you put more weight on it. I was not physically prepared for the steepness of the climb with the weight of the climb, even though I'm like, oh, it's only 1,200 feet higher, 1,500 feet higher. I had the same mental mindset doing the stuff in New Hampshire, and it was exactly like Afghanistan. Hey, I'm not prepared for this. Totally different environments.
The term that I like to use that I've heard a lot is goat trails, right? And in Washington State, we have goat trails. I don't know what they call it, pronghorn sheep or whatever, the big ass mountain goats. And you get up there and you can see the little trails they using straight up the mountain, and you're like, oh man, no, ain't what, oh man. And that's with no ruck on, right? Like hiking around the Cascades and Mount Rainier, and like, man.